All around us right now, there's an invisible workforce. It's trillions strong, and we rely on it every single day. We can't see them, but they are literally building our world, from the food we eat to the fuel in our cars. This is the world of applied and industrial microbiology, where we've learned how to harness the power of the planet's tiniest and most powerful employees.
So here's a question for you. What do all these things, cheese, biofuels, life-saving drugs, have in common? It sounds like a riddle, right? Well, the answer connects some of our most ancient traditions with some seriously cutting-edge technology. The common thread here? It's microbes, all put to work for us in some pretty incredible ways. And that's exactly what we're going to break down. So here's our roadmap. We'll start in the kitchen with microbes as the original chefs. Then we'll head over to the invisible factory. From there, we'll dive deep into the process of fermentation itself. And finally, we'll look at how these tiny organisms are helping us power a better tomorrow. Okay, first step, let's start with something we can all relate to: food. Long before we even knew what a microbe was, humans were, without realizing it, expert microbiologists. We were already using these invisible helpers to completely transform our food. I mean, just think about it for a second. Bread, cheese, yogurt, beer, wine. These aren't just foods. They're the result of an ancient partnership between us and microbes. For thousands of years, fermentation wasn't just about making things taste good. It was one of the only ways to preserve food and make it last, way before we ever had refrigerators. So, how does it actually work? Well, let's take cheese, for example. It all starts when the main protein in milk, casein, curdles up. Then the real workers arrive, specific lactic acid bacteria. They get busy fermenting the sugars in the milk. And then, this is where the real magic happens. Different microbes grow either inside the cheese or on its surface. This ripening process is what creates the incredible variety of flavors and textures we all love. Of course, these days, we often want to get rid of microbes to keep food from spoiling. Industrial canning, for instance, uses steam under incredible pressure to kill everything. Not just the microbes, but their super tough little survival pods, called endospores. Think of the endospores of Clostridium botulinum. They're like nearly indestructible seeds of a very dangerous bacteria that can survive boiling water. That's why canning needs such extreme conditions. Aseptic packaging, on the other hand, takes a different route. It sterilizes the food and the package separately, and then puts them together in a totally sterile room. Two totally different strategies for solving the same age-old problem. All right, so let's leave the kitchen and head over to the factory. This is where we get to see the true, mind-boggling scale and power of putting microbes to work for us. The official term for all this is industrial microbiology. And really, it's just what it sounds like: using microorganisms as tiny, super efficient factories to make commercial products or get a job done on a massive scale. So, why use microbes instead of just, building a traditional chemical plant? Well, it comes down to incredible efficiency. Unlike a lot of chemical processes that need crazy high temperatures and pressure, microbes just do their thing at room temp. They can eat cheap stuff like starch and turn it into valuable products. And the best part? They don't create a bunch of toxic gunk that's hard to clean up. It's just a cleaner, smarter way to make things. And here's a perfect example of how wild and widespread this is. You know that soft, worn-in feel of your favorite pair of stonewashed jeans? Yeah, that doesn't actually come from tumbling them with stones anymore. Nope, it comes from cellulase, which is an enzyme made by fungi that gently breaks down the cotton fibers to get that perfect look. How cool is that? Okay, to really understand how this industrial scale magic happens, we need to pop the hood and look at the engine that drives it all: fermentation technology. And this is the factory floor. It's called a bioreactor. You can basically think of it as a super controlled, perfect environment designed to make trillions of microbes as happy and productive as they can possibly be. Inside these huge steel tanks, everything — temperature, pH, oxygen, food — is perfectly managed to get them to make as much of whatever we want as possible. Now here's a really crucial point. Microbes make different stuff at different times in their life. So, they produce what we call primary metabolites, like ethanol, when they're actively growing and multiplying. That's called the trophophase. It's like they're building their own houses. But then they make secondary metabolites, like the antibiotic penicillin, after they've stopped growing, in what's called the stationary phase, or idiophase. It's like their houses are built and now they're making specialized goods. Being able to control these phases is the absolute key to making things on an industrial scale. And the sheer range of products they make is just staggering. We're not talking about niche stuff here. We're talking about life-saving antibiotics, vaccines, essential vitamins, amino acids that go into our food and supplements, and tons of industrial enzymes. These are truly foundational to modern medicine and manufacturing.
So we've seen how vital microbes are to so many industries today. Now, for our final section, let's look to the future. Because microbes aren't just making the things we use right now, they're offering us real solutions to some of our biggest challenges, especially when it comes to energy.
And biofuels are the perfect example. These are basically renewable energy sources that we get from living things. So instead of drilling deep into the earth for a finite supply of fossil fuels, we can essentially grow our energy. And microbes, they're the ones who unlock it for us.
This whole process is often called bioconversion. It's an amazing idea. We can take biomass, which is just a fancy word for things like leftover corn stalks or agricultural waste, even city garbage, and use microbes to convert all of that into useful fuels like ethanol or methane. We're literally turning trash into treasure.
And we already see this happening. Corn and sugarcane are huge sources for ethanol, which is great, but it also leads to that tricky food versus fuel debate. Should we use farmland to grow fuel instead of food? That's why the real frontier is using other types of microbes for bioconversion of things we can't eat, turning actual waste into energy without touching our food supply. So as we wrap up, it's pretty clear that this invisible world is absolutely everywhere. The ideas of applied microbiology touch our lives all the time, giving us solutions that aren't just powerful, but are often way cleaner and more sustainable than the old ways of doing things. It's really an amazing partnership. And that really just leaves us with one final big thought. We have successfully enlisted this invisible army of microbes to tackle some of our greatest needs: food, medicine, energy. So looking forward, what's the next huge global challenge we're going to solve with them? Cleaning up plastic from our oceans? Creating brand new materials? Or maybe something we haven't even dreamed of yet? The possibilities are pretty much endless.